Well, hello, everyone. Nicole Coustier with Aurelian Coaching. So welcome to our latest webinar. And this one is about anxiety. This is something that I know a little something about, but just as I'm coaching people a lot of times these days, people are entering coaching sessions saying they're anxious. And they could be anxious about any number of things, but wow, is anxiety a prevailing emotion these days? And so I wanted to take the opportunity to teach you guys about some of the techniques that I am using with my existing clients to help them through this anxiety. Now, a couple of things before we get started here. So, first of all, the information that I will give here is something that you can apply to really any kind of emotion, right? So, you know, the clients that I've had in the past who deal with, anger, they have intense anger, or indifference, right? Or just even frustration, like low levels of frustration all the time, right? And they want to be coached through that. So it's not always anxiety. So the techniques that I'm going to be teaching you can be applied in a number of different ways. It's just that anxiety seems to be, a big theme these days. So that's point number one. Now, point number two is that a lot of what I'm going to be sharing with you are concepts that might be new and they might be weird. I'll just say they might be weird. So sometimes when I'm coaching people through this type of stuff, I notice resistance. People are like, what are you talking about? This is crazy. Okay. All I'm saying is stick with me. Okay. Keep an open mind. Okay, this is being recorded. You're gonna get a link to the recording and you can watch it again and again and again if you need to. Okay. But it's important for you to keep an open mind because some of the concepts that I'll be introducing, you might be familiar with or you might not. And for the people who haven't heard emotion kind of couched in this way that I'm going to be couching it, they think it's just wonky. And so they instantly start to put walls up. And I'm going to encourage you to just hear me out. Hear me out. Okay? All right, so let's begin. So the first thing that I want to introduce to you and have us all recognize is anxiety is not intangible. And in fact, no emotion is intangible. For some reason, we are conditioned or we're brought up with, or it's just something that we all assume and accept, that emotion is this kind of fluffy, intangible thing. And it is so not. In fact, it's totally the opposite. Totally the opposite. Emotion is physical. Emotion is physical all the time. It is, by definition, if you are feeling an emotion, you are having a physical experience. Okay? And some people are like, yeah, okay, I get it. Okay. But let me talk about a different kind of emotion to really kind of ground us. Let's take love. Okay. Books are written on this, poetry, right? It's about being in the clouds or feeling connected with people or whatever. Listen. When you feel love, it is a physical manifestation of whatever you might be thinking at any given point in time. It is physical. I promise you that, right? So when you think about love, it may manifest for you differently than somebody else, but I promise you it's physical. Okay. So with love, sometimes what happens for some people, their heart rate goes up, right? For some people, you might feel just some discomfort in the gut, right? Butterflies, right? For some people, it's their lungs expand, like the breath that they take, they expand, right? It is a very real physical thing. Emotion is not intangible. And I think the reason that when people believe that emotion is this intangible thing that you can't really get your arms around, it makes it harder for us to manage our emotions. Right? How do you, if it's something that just kind of exists in the ether, right? How on earth can you control it? Right? You're setting yourself up to fail there, okay? Emotion is physical. It is the physical manifestation of whatever you might be thinking in that moment, okay? So let's talk about anxiety in particular, okay? Anxiety, well, let's say, I'll start with me, okay? So when I feel anxiety, I feel it in my solar plexus. You know, that part of the body where if somebody were to knock the wind out of you, it's like right there. It's right under the ribs. And it's a knot. It feels like, you know, that braided rope, that really rough rope that you can't handle very well with your bare hands because it's so rough that your hands can actually get hurt and scratched up. When I feel anxiety, it is a knot made of that rope, like just pulled super crazy tight. And that pull, that knot is right there. I'm not feeling anxiety anywhere else. It's like totally concentrated right there in that spot. You know, anger is another one where people are like, when they feel anger, sometimes when you can just watch other people, right? The whole thing about reading people's emotions on their faces. Yeah, see, emotion is physical. Or you can read somebody's body language. This is what I'm talking about. It is not this esoteric in the clouds, intangible thing. Emotion is physical. When somebody is feeling anger, you can be a witness to it, right? What happens? This sometimes, right? For some people, they clench, right? Shoulders can go up. It doesn't need to be like this huge, like this, right? You can notice even subtleties when people are angry, right? Sometimes they crouch over a little bit, right? Sometimes what happens? Their legs separate, their feet separate. Isn't that fascinating? For everybody, it's going to be a little bit different, but it's a very real thing. Get it out of your mind that emotion is this kind of totally intangible thing, because if you haven't been able to manage your anxiety, this might be one of the reasons why. How do you get your arms around something that is just fluffy and something that you feel? Stop feeling that. Yeah, no. It's physical. It's physical. The moment you start to realize that it is physical, well, maybe there are different ways to handle it that we haven't actually explored before, and that might really work for you, right? Now, our bodies are designed to do this. Like, our bodies are there to process emotion. As much as your eyes are there to see and your ears are there to hear, right? Your entire body, the whole point of it, one of its jobs is to process feelings, emotions, because they're physical, they're always physical, right? And so much of what we do day to day and how we manage our emotions, negative emotions in particular, is you try to get away from it, right? You try to get away, like, you know, I've had clients who've told me, Nicole, you're crazy. You want me to feel it? The reason I hired you is I don't want to feel anxiety anymore. What do you mean you want me to feel it? You need to feel, you need to notice it in your body. Let your body do its work. The emotion needs to be processed in order for it to be dissipated. Yeah. So what does it mean to be process emotion? Like, people talk about that a lot. And it's very hard to talk about processing emotion if it's this intangible thing, right? What the hell does that even mean? But if it's physical, okay, now we can get a little bit more specific, right? So when you are experiencing an emotion, and what it means to process is to notice. Okay, you notice what is happening in your body. First of all, notice where are you feeling vibrations? Where are you feeling tightness? Where are you feeling anything? Like, when you think of this thing that causes you anxiety, where are you feeling it in your body? Number 2, what are you feeling exactly? Right? So in preparation for this webinar, I have gone through like all the emotions and like thinking about, where do I feel that and where do I feel that? So I'm coming prepared with lots of examples. But when I feel frustration is one that's very interesting, because it's not quite anger, right? Anger is frustration building up, and then you reach a threshold, right? There's an inflection point between frustration and anger. But when I'm not quite angry, but it's just really frustrating, I feel it here, like right at the base of my neck. It doesn't go out to my shoulders. It doesn't, you know, whatever, but it's right here. Oh. Okay. So it's a tightness, right? So number 1, I want you to notice, number 1, in terms of the steps of processing emotion physically in order to get it to dissipate. Number 1, you have to identify the area in the body or the areas where you are experiencing it. And number 2 is what is happening in that area, right? Before, I talked about a knot, okay? Here, I talked about tightness. Right? For some people, love is lungs expanding, right? It could be any number of things, but notice where it is in your body. And number 2, what exactly your tissues and your cells and your organs, what is happening to them? Very real stuff, guys, right? This is what your body is designed to do. Your body, all human beings, right? We have emotion. Our bodies are actually designed to experience and process and dissipate the emotion. It's an extremely physical thing, okay? So that's number 2. Notice what is happening. Okay, number 3, this is so hard, guys. And just, I fully acknowledge how hard this is. So number 3 is to feel it. Oh man, people don't want to do this. They really don't want to do this because they're afraid. They're afraid if they give in to the emotion, if they recognize it, they notice it, and they shine a spotlight on it, they're afraid of what? That it's going to exacerbate it. You know, anxiety, I'm trying to get away from anxiety. You know, I don't want to sit here and like shine a spotlight on that knot. It's just going to make me feel the knot even stronger. It's never going to be. There's a skepticism that if you are processing the emotion, noticing where it happens, noticing what in your muscles and tissues is happening, that it will grow and grow and grow, and it actually won't dissipate. But whatever you've been doing up until this point to address anxiety maybe isn't working so well. So I'm asking you to take a leap of faith here and try it. Try it and see when you sit with it, if it actually dissipates. It's a very strange concept, because what people do often with negative emotion is they avoid, right? Like I distract, right? This is where people, if they don't want to feel a negative emotion, they are distracting themselves. This is where people are overeating, or they're over drinking, or they're overspending. Raise your hand if all the anxiety around COVID and race relations has you on Amazon clicking buy it now all the time, right? Anxiety. You're distracting yourself, right? You're buffering against the emotion by doing other things. Or here's another strategy is, and again, these might not be, it's not like people are sitting there going, well, I think I'll overspend today in order to avoid feeling my anxiety. You know, I'm not sure that that's happening. Some people are, right? But some people, they actually replace the anxiety. They try to layer on top of the negative emotion a different emotion, right? The anxiety is there, right? And it's low level, you know, I can't avoid it. I'm feeling it, but I would rather feel comforted right now. So how am I going to get comfort? I'm going to do these other things. So the comfort is layering on top of the anxiety. But the anxiety doesn't actually go anywhere. Your body is just like, oh, okay, we'll do this thing over here first. But just what happens when the comfort goes away, the anxiety is still there. Still there. So when you allow yourself to allow your body, specifically your body, allow your body to experience that emotion, your body often works to resolve it, right? Now, notice the dissipation. When you are looking at the anxiety, for me, it's the knot, right, in the solar plexus. I'm noticing that this just happened to me like last week, so it's very top of mind for me. But I noticed that rope knot, and for you, it might be different, but there's this rope knot. And what happened is when I looked at the rope knot and I just felt the knot, and again, it's just acknowledgement. It's like, oh my God, this tightness, this rope knot, this really rough fiber that feels like I'm going to hurt myself if I touch it, just started to relax a little bit. It just wasn't as tight. That was the first thing that happened for me, is it wasn't pulled so damn tight. You know, it started loose. Now, I'm not saying that in one sitting, you know, you're magically going to resolve all of your anxiety and the knot will go away, and because there's another part to this, right? But in order to even give yourself a chance of processing emotion, you have to look at it, you have to acknowledge it in your body, and you have to feel the thing. And notice how it might be dissipating, how it might be filtering out, right? It might, this hasn't happened for me, but when I've coached other people, and I've seen this happen with other people that are being coached, when they're, whatever that they're feeling starts to move into other parts of their body. But what happens is it's not like the knot is moving to different parts. It's being released. So you might feel sensation elsewhere in your body, but that's the dissipation. Okay. So again, this might manifest very differently for everybody. For any given individual, you might experience this differently. Okay. So is that the end of it? No. Listen. Remember when I said at the very, very beginning that emotion is physical, but not just that, it's the physical manifestation of our thoughts, right? So you can't feel an emotion before you have a thought about it. Okay, so this is the second truth bomb that people are like, what are you talking about? And if you've seen some of my webinars before, I've talked about this concept before because it's so central to how we manage our emotions, how we manage our relationships, how we manage how we show up on the job. This is cornerstone stuff. Okay, so I might seem like a broken record if you've paid attention to these webinars over time. So we have a thought, and it might be conscious or it might be unconscious. It might be an unconscious thought that is generating that emotion, which again, you're going to feel physically somewhere, right? So the second part, once you actually feel the emotion, and hopefully over time it's dissipating, right? There's a second step here, which is why is that emotion being generated in the first place, right? That is the crux of it. If you want to resolve anxiety better and more efficiently over time, you have to look at what the hell is generating the anxiety in the first place. Okay, now, a couple things about this. Number one is that emotion isn't generated by anything external. Emotion isn't generated by your circumstances. Emotion isn't generated by other people. Nope. Emotion is only ever generated by your thought about something. Okay. So now I'm not saying that a person does a shitty thing to you. Sorry, pardon my language. A person does, a nasty thing to you, and that you're just supposed to like let it roll off your back and just be the bigger person and all of that. I mean, yes, great if you can do that. But what I'm pointing out is that that person saying a nasty thing about you, to your face, behind your back, whatever it might be, in and of itself doesn't cause your emotion, doesn't cause the physical manifestation in your body. There's a step in between, which is you made it mean something, right? They said a thing and you had a thought about it. And then that thought produced the anxiety that you feel in your body. Now, what kind of thoughts could generate? Again, this could be unconscious, right? So part of this whole exercise is to surface what are the underlying thoughts that are generating the anxiety in the first place. And it may be obvious. It may totally be obvious. Injustice, right? They said a thing about me that wasn't right. Okay? Emotion, right? It might be something very deep, like really unconscious, like they said a thing and your unconscious thought was, holy shit, what if they're right? Emotion, right? There is always some sort of underlying thought behind the physical manifestation of your emotion in your body. Always. It may not be obvious at first, so you may need to dig. But this is the work. This is the work that needs to be done to properly manage your emotion and to kind of mitigate it going forward. Right? So there's an external stimulus. And the really important thing to note is that your brain is taking in that information and doing something with it. It's interpreting, it's making it mean something. And then once your brain formulates that thought, now your body's having a reaction. Okay? He smiled at me, right? Your brain is thinking, oh, he's interested. Ooh, okay. Now your body is feeling what? Any number of things, right? Hope or intrigue or satisfaction or whatever, right? But sometimes it happens like that. Sometimes, again, this is one of those things that we're conditioned to believe that, well, emotion just happens, right? It's a visceral thing. Yeah. That's how fast it can happen. That's how fast it can happen. Where the external stimulus, your brain processes information, makes it mean something, and then you feel it. So the second part of managing anxiety or, whatever other negative emotion that you're coming to the conclusion really doesn't serve you and you need to figure out a way to deal with this, is to surface the thought or thoughts that are generating the anxiety. What are you making things mean? And once you shine a spotlight on that, well, you get to decide. You get to decide, should I keep that thought? Is it really helping me here? Is there a different thought I might want? A different thought that might generate a different emotion in me, right? And here's the other thing. I don't mean to imply that this is so easy, right? It may not be that easy. It may take practice. It may take coaching, right? But this is how it's done. This is how it's done when you no longer want to buffer or distract yourself with binging Netflix in order to escape anxiety, right? This is the process that you need to go through. And so that is the work. This is the whole point of the webinar. This is what I wanted to teach you, that there is a different way to process negative emotion that, is different perhaps than some of the other techniques that you've been taught or that you've tried and maybe don't work for you. Now, another thing that I'll say about this is that if you are doing things like meditation, right, or exercise, right, those are all very healthy things. And those, I just want to point out that if those are things that you've done in the past or that you've seen other people do and other people have had success with that, I just want to point out how physical those things are. They're physical, right? Meditation is about breathing. If meditation is a way that other people have processed negative emotion and managed the anxiety, I wonder why. I wonder why. It's about connection to the body. Okay? If exercise is something that people, I hear this, I'm not like this myself, but I am aware of very healthy people who say that they need to exercise every day. And studies show that this is a very good thing for managing anxiety, depression, other things, right? If you exercise every day, what is it about the exercise? It is physical. It's physical because emotion is physical, guys. It's true. Okay, so I'm not saying that this technique where you're identifying the place in the body where you're feeling it, and then you are noticing what is happening in that part of the body, and then you're just feeling it, sitting with it, and noticing it and allowing it to dissipate, okay? And then surfacing the underlying thoughts that generated that anxiety in the first place. I'm not saying that this method is better than some of the other methods or needs to replace the other methods. Really, it is what works for you, what works for you. And these things, all these strategies can happen in parallel, right? But the thing that I want to point out is that there's a difference between the healthy strategies that serve you better over the long term, like meditation and exercise and this method that I'm talking about, and other strategies that just, man, you're digging yourself a deeper hole every time you're trying to distract yourself, every time you are just trying to layer on a different emotion and never allowing your body to process the thing. Okay, that is going to come back and bite you in your ass later. And it has, right? It has. It's happened to all of us, right? So that's all I'm talking about. I don't want people to kind of think, well, you know, this is the one method that's going to fix everything for everybody forever and ever. Amen. All I'm saying is here's an alternative. You may want to do it, try it, see if it works for you. You may want to do it in parallel with other strategies that are healthy. But this is what I wanted to share with you guys. Okay, a couple of things before I let you go. One is if you are interested in doing some brainstorming about this for you, application in your life, I actually give a first free coaching session. So you can go to aureliancoaching.com and sign up there. There's a link. You can sign up there. Or if you're joining this webinar from my Working Widow program, you can go to workingwidow.com. And it's the same link. You can go there. It'll say, hey, do you want to have a free coaching session and kind of talk? Pick something that works for your calendar. You'll see all the times available there. And then again, you're going to get a recording of this so you can watch it again. Okay? Because there are a couple things in here where sometimes when I've coached people in the past, like blows their mind that emotion is physical and not intangible, or that every single emotion is generated from a thought, unconscious or conscious. I get a lot of people who are like, you're crazy. Emotion just happens. Okay, well, all right. So when you're ready to rewatch this, you can. Okay, so once again, this is Nicole Coustier with Aurelian Coaching and the Working Widow program. I hope you found this helpful. Let me see if I have a couple of questions here. Wow. So this is something somebody added where is your tongue? So this is very interesting because some people have pointed to a very particular part of their body and notice that the way they process emotion is through that body part. So she said, where is your tongue? If it's pressed up at the top of the roof of my mouth, stressed. But if it's low, I'm relaxed. That's another way to think about it. That's very, very helpful. Yeah. So there are lots of different ways to apply it. Some of my coaching sessions are actually focused on how to apply this technique in a way that makes sense for the individual, right? So I also don't want you guys to think that, well, I tried it exactly as Nicole said and it didn't work for me. That may be true, but I also don't want you to think that this is so narrow and so limited that there isn't room for flexibility. Okay, so I've already told you about all the different ways that we experience emotion differently in our bodies. There are just as many ways to help it dissipate. And there are an infinite number of ways to actually surface underlying thoughts and assumptions that are generating the feelings. So how that works for you, it may be different. You may need to try a few different things, or if you want to be coached through it, we could do that as well. Okay, have a wonderful week, everybody, and be in touch with your emotions physically. Okay, I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care. Bye.